Okay, you're going to see something come up. Just say yes.
Or got it. Same thing.
Yeah, got it. Okay, welcome to the Get Signed and Succeed podcast. My name is Bruce Badgley, and joining me as always are my cohorts in crime here on our podcast, Craig Cox, who of one life skills, Andrew Cohen, Get Recruited Consulting, and joining us today, Dave Caputi from Middlebury, Vermont, the offensive line coach. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, good. Happy Father's Day to everybody and all the fathers out there. But, the first thing I want to start out with the show here is, we talk a lot about the fact that we're always open for people to get a hold of us. We're going to start putting our information, in the show, a little bit more. So, obviously, Andrew, you're always available for people to give you a call regarding, football related questions, recruiting, obviously, 570-428-2872, get _ recruited on Twitter, and obviously your website, getrecruitedconsulting.com, Coach Cox at oneofonelifeskills.com, how to get people accustomed to doing the same thing that successful people are doing, right, Craig?
Absolutely right.
And anything to do with guidance related to, picking the right school, 573-416-0829. And I'm Bruce Badgley at Sports Solutions Marketing for any businesses interested in, putting together podcasts, advertising on, local and national sports. I do everything from tennis today to state championship baseball, which is what I did this week. And, as we get into this a little bit, we really haven't talked a lot about, what a week is like for me, for us. So, Craig, I mean, obviously, you're dealing with a lot of people and a lot of things. Talk a little bit about, what your week entailed this week.
Absolutely. First, I'd like to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there and all the second best fathers, because I think it's official, according to my family, that I'm first, but it's okay being second too. But my week's busy as always. My wife is in optometry school, so I chase our 4-year-old around a whole lot. And in between that, I'm meeting with young men, trying to help them learn the skills to be successful. Spent a lot of time on Twitter this week and a lot of interest meetings this week. Been kind of a busy week. I'm excited about the future of the program itself. I love this podcast and where we're going, and we're constantly giving good information to students and their parents. So I appreciate our guests today for being with us, and Coach Cohen and Bruce. Obviously, you do all the hard work. We just get on here and talk. So I appreciate everybody with what we're doing. It's a great opportunity. And if anybody wanted to go back and see all of our podcasts, it's on my website, oneofonelifeskills.com/videos. You can go back and watch all. This will be episode number 10, and we already have the next 4 or 5 lined up, ready to go. So happy to be here and ready to get going.
Yeah, you make a great point there, is that, all of the wealth of information that we've gone through, from NIL to portal to, all types of, putting together a great video, all of that is, on your website there. But Dave, obviously, we're kind of in the middle of the summer. What was your week like, related to football or otherwise?
Well, I guess a step back was last weekend was a reunion weekend at Middlebury College. So I am a 1981 graduate of Middlebury College. So I got to hang out with a lot of contemporaries. Had fond memories of their time at Middlebury College, and we all come back and get to chat about that. And then the rest of the week really was just touching base with a lot of guys and trying to catch up on all the film with all the guys in our database, tracking down guys for to get their transcript and senior class schedules and school profiles so that we can begin collecting that information, pre-qualifying guys, starting with doing that with the admissions process. So it's a lot of busy work, catching up with guys, making sure we have all the correct information, uploading that into a database. And then on Friday, I was really kicked off my summer camp season, where I went to the Best in New England clinic with 800 guys at Springfield. So was able to do that, and now that all that stuff really kicks off in earnest for the next 6 weeks. My schedule's cut back from some past. Last year was a bit of a grind, so I've kind of cut my camps to about 11 this year. So
that's it. So you have 11 camps
Just
in 6
11.
weeks.
Yeah, 11 camps coming up in 6 weeks, and it's just and it's fun to see guys in person, to connect the dots on guys. You've seen film, you've got their transcripts, you have coaches' recommendations. Some guys you've seen at camp last year going into their junior year, and you're seeing a kid who's 2 inches taller, more physically mature, has put stuff together in the weight room. And just seeing those guys come back and compete, and you can see some guys that you thought you had a shot at, and you see them in person and you go, he's way above us all of a sudden, and he just shot right past us. It's like, so it is fun just to track the kids through the whole recruiting process and see them in person and watch and getting an evaluation of them.
Wow. Great. And how about you, Andrew? What was this last week like?
Well, before I get into that, because I'm a pretty boring guy, just to make sure everyone understands, Coach Caputi is one of the most humble gentlemen I've ever worked with or been around. I consider him a great friend. But Middlebury College is one of the best institutions in the country. So academically, they're always number 3, number 4 in the country as the best liberal arts schools. And they also play in the NESCAC, which is an outstanding football conference that is academically probably the strongest academic conference in the country, definitely in Division III. So great thing to be a part of. Coach and I worked together. He was the head coach at Bowdoin College in Maine for, I think, 16 seasons. I might be wrong. And I was under him as the defensive coordinator. I think it's like everything. I always appreciated him, but probably appreciated him a lot more after I left. I learned a ton of football. We were both football junkies, and we'd be in the office together till 11 o'clock after everyone left. When I interviewed, it was the longest interview I ever had. It was 2 days with Coach, and I think one night was like midnight, and the other was a long day as well. But my point is, he's very good at what he does, but he's very humble. And the experience, though, as a NESCAC coach is very interesting. You're recruiting the whole country. You're recruiting a very high-level academic and athletic student. But because it's so hard to get in and good football at the same time, they have to recruit a large area, and they have to go out to camps. They're not allowed legally by their conference to go out during regular recruiting times and meet the student athletes in person. So they have to see them in camp. They have to have them on campus. And it's vital that they get kids to visit their campus during the summer. So I just want to make sure everyone understands, because if he's nice enough to spend his time, I want to make sure that everyone understands about Middlebury College in general, but also their specific conference. So leading into that, what did I do this week? Well, I hung out. I had some Long Island iced teas, and I work. My schedule is typically very similar. So half of my time is I'm reaching out to college coaches like Dave Caputi, and they're not just people that I know. A lot of them are, but a lot of people I reach out to get specific answers from the colleges. So I spend a lot of time talking about my clients. My relationship with Coach Caputi is so good that there is a valued respect that goes both ways. They're not going to take someone because I say that they should, but they do value the positives that I say about the student athletes. So that's always good, but they got to take who they want to take. I'm not an agent. And then my other time is really spent a lot with our current clients, and we are working on their progress, making sure all the college coaches know they're going to be at specific camps, but also making sure they are prepared for those specific camps. So many of my clients were at that Bone camp that Coach mentioned. That was at Springfield College. So we send their information in advance of the camp. So that way the college coaches know for sure that they're going to be there. But I'm preparing the student athletes for what's going to take place at camp. And that's kind of a lengthy process. And then probably the remaining 25% of my time is continuing to talk to new student athletes and see not only who wants to be a part of our program at Get Recruited Consulting, but make sure they're the right fit, that we want them to be part of the program as well, and that we value that athletically and academically we can help them, and we can help them achieve their dreams, because not everyone can play college football. I hate to say it, but it's competitive. Whether it's Division III or Division I, there's good players all over the country. And we don't want to take someone on that we don't truly believe can be a good member of a good football team. So that's what I did this past week, Badge.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'll tell you what, very special week for me. Enormous amount of fun. I'll kind of go back to even last weekend. Saturday, I was at a 7-on-7 at Susquehanna Township High School, had 12 of the best teams from the area, including Southern Columbia, one of the big, they won national championships for small school football. They were there, Harrisburg, and, a lot of the big name schools in the area did a broadcast on 7-on-7. I do that for Penn Live. Really happy they decided to do that because it's a lot of fun. But those 7-on-7s are great for me. Why I like them is, not so much for the football and what have you, but in being able to connect with coaches and players in a setting, a nice one-on-one setting where quite honestly, they're relaxed. I can walk up to a coach on the sidelines or pregame and just face to face ask him a direct question, like Jim Roth at Southern Columbia. Asking him, why he was, for a team that's a run-oriented team, why he brings his team here. He had a great answer. And the fact that most of the teams that they play are playing more wide open passing offense. So it isn't necessarily value for him from the offensive side. It's value on the defensive side. And it's not only good for the players, but it's good for his coaches, being able to make those calls and work with the players. So this is where these teams really start to bond. And that's what the guy who's, won like 700 games and multiple state championships, who finds enormous value, in 7-on-7. Tuesday for me was a state semifinal baseball broadcast. And Thursday was 3 state baseball broadcasts, state baseball championship broadcasts for NFHS Network. Saturday, 3 more state championship baseball broadcasts. Today was tennis, but for me, and we were talking a little bit before the meeting, or before we started this, but state championships, so compelling, when it comes down to it. And I feel so lucky to have the opportunity to do state championships in multiple sports. I've done it in soccer, basketball, football, and now baseball. And it's so very special. But around all of these things, I guess the common denominator, there's so much in relationship building, isn't it? I mean, in really getting good information and determining, what's going to be best for, these athletes. It's so much about relationships, right, Dave?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I would say a big part of the recruiting process is anytime you're connecting with a kid and his family and their network of friends, a younger brother, a next door neighbor, a teammate who's a little bit younger, the relationships you build with those people and that specific high school community on that in that specific program carries forward for 3 or 4 or even longer years. I mean, you want them to have a favorable impression of the college, but you're building relationships with people. You know, it's just like building a house one brick at a time. You want to make sure everybody has a positive experience with you in the recruiting process, because even if they don't end up coming to your institution, you want people at that school in that community to take phone calls from you in the future, and you want people to say they were treated well by your specific college in the process. So even if the kid is not going to be a football player in your program, there's finding a way to treat them well. I mean, this past weekend on Friday when I was at Best of New England, I had 3 parents come and say hello to me because and thank me because I had their sons send me the transcript, and I've been in contact with a kid that had their GPA, had their SAT scores. This film was very good. Position I need to say, hey, your film's good. I need to see a copy of the transcript. And once I got a copy of the transcript, I found out those kids were not going to be in our wheelhouse academically. They just didn't have what our admissions office would be looking for. But I let those kids know that early, because I don't want those kids and their parents to jump in a car and make the trip up to Middlebury and fall in love with the place and then deliver the news after the fact. But I think building a relationship, people are appreciative of that relationship and that honesty, so that they in turn are now asking very specific questions when they deal with other people. So that relationship, and Andrew and I have talked about this many times over the years, that relationship is you want to recruit and retain kids in your program, but you also want to make sure all the kids you're being fair to all the people in the process, because for kids going through this process, they have their time is so valuable, and they want to be focused very early on a specific place and a great match.
Yeah, and then getting into obviously the topic of the show, off-season preparation, building relationships, making sure that you get all your paperwork in order, all the aspects, all the clerical aspects of getting prepared for the upcoming season. You just touched on. That's something that these players really can't disregard. I mean, it's actually probably next to the physical aspect of camps, preparing clerically and transcript wise and developing those relationships. How would you rank that versus the physical aspects of going to camps for these players in the off season?
It's equal. I mean, you can't do one without the other. That you can all the work in the world in the weight room, or with a specific speed development coach, whether it's at your school or somebody that you hire privately, a personal quarterback coach, or somebody that you work with twice a week. You can do everything right there, but if you do not schedule classes correctly, or you don't get the necessary grades, then all that hard work, you cut the number of schools that you could be talking to in half. So I think that one without the other, it doesn't work. You need both. Conversely, a kid could do everything right in the classroom, take all AP courses, get all A's, have great SAT scores, but if they're not putting the time and effort into the weight room, then they aren't going to be football. They aren't going to make it either. It's for boys at this age, my gosh, to think like 15, 16 and 17-year-old boys, like we're asking them to behave like mature adult men. It's
a lot to ask.
I know. Yeah, I know what I was like at 15 or 16, and I've just that's just something a lot to ask for those guys going through this process. Thank God there are adults in their lives as high school coaches and guidance counselors and teachers who take an interest, and parents who keep them on the straight and narrow and keep them focused and make everything work.
And that's where you kind of fit in, Craig. I mean, in how you're kind of molding these guys, in creating that success factor of, making sure that, what Dave talked about of, academics and everything, related to be successful, to model their program or themselves after what's been successful by people, previously, right?
Right. And as far as the topic this week, how to prepare, for the upcoming season, what I would suggest from an academic standpoint is think about it, sit down, get in a quiet space, come up with a goal for your GPA for this semester, for the first semester. Go ahead and come up with it now. Go ahead and print it off and post it up everywhere where you can see it. Go ahead and start getting it into your subconscious and start thinking about it before, while you have the time. And also time management. Start working on time management skills now while you have more time, because when the school starts and season starts, then everything gets a lot busier and a little more hectic. And if you're not organized, and if you're not planning your day and you're not planning your weeks, then that's when the day starts to run you, and you start to run out of time and not accomplish things you want to accomplish. So that's what I would suggest for students, going into the season. We only have, for some people, I know my son, they start early August.
Wow.
It's going to be here before you know it. But make sure that you sit down and plan out some goals that you want to accomplish for this semester, and post them up where you can see them, because that's half the battle. You got to keep your goal in front of you if you want to get there. But that's what I would say from an academic standpoint. Other than, like Coach said, make sure your transcripts and make sure you're taking the classes that you need to take, especially based off if you're trying to go to a high academic school, like Coach coaches at. I mean, you really got to make sure you're on top of those things.
Yeah, and Andrew, I mean, you kind of mold all of that stuff together when you bring on a client, right? I mean, you bring on not only the physical, but the class, and you kind of help with the communications and developing those relationships, right?
Yes, I think I need to bring up, though, in terms of the actual preparation for the season, I think sometimes the student athletes today are getting so consumed with these camps that I don't know if they were always working hard enough at preparing for their season and working with their teammates and for their high school coaches. So what I'm saying is, we deal with kids that are anywhere from 9th grade to rising seniors. And I think if you're presently a 9th or a 10th grader, you should probably attend maybe 2 or 3 camps. But you're going to get the most bang for your buck by getting in better condition, more flexible, faster, stronger, and preparing for the specific things that are going to take place at the camps. You're going to get a 40, either a vertical jump or a broad jump or both, 5-10-5 or L drill. But preparing for those things, yes. But most importantly, they need to be preparing to have a great season. Now, if you're a rising junior or a rising senior, still, your most important is your season. However, you do have to prepare for those camps, and you might need to go to a few more camps. And without getting into too much detail, part of that depends on the level of play. If you want to be a Division I player, whether it's FCS or FBS, typically, not always, but typically, if you're not seen by that school in person at their camp, you're probably not going to get an offer there. And that's where it becomes a hard balance. As a student athlete and a parent, what camps do I go to? You can't just go to a camp because you get an email. You go to a camp because they have real interest in you. But if you just start showing up at these camps and think you're going to get an offer, you're naive. So I don't want to get too far off that subject, but I do think
no. It actually leads into my next question, which is, so often, and I mean, it's out there on social media, and I really just like to get, everybody's opinion on this. I see these guys and they say, hey, I'm going to be at this camp here and this camp there and this camp there and this camp there. And it's almost like they're expecting the coaches to follow them rather than kind of them going to the camp that fits their opportunity to get to the next level. Dave, how do you feel about guys like that are just A, doing that, and B, that just like do like a camp every single month or every single week or 2 a week there? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I appreciate that. When kids are posting that on Twitter, if it's a way for us to get information, because in our database, we're always, if we have all those, whatever, we have 15,000 names in the database now, and and half of them are not active at this point. And once you get to the preliminary information, and then that will be half probably in the next month. It's actually good for them just to have something published, like, here's my summer camp schedule, and all we're doing is going through and clicking. So if it's Andrew Cohen, these are the camps he's going to be at, click, all the different things, so we can know that. So there could be somebody I am recruiting, but I am not going to be at that camp. But 2 of our assistant coaches will be. One of them will be at one of them will be at the Penn camp. One of them will be at the Princeton camp, and I'll be working at the Harvard camp, and somebody else at the Yale camp. So at least those guys know, hey, while they're there, here are some. They're showing up with a list. We got to check these guys out. They know where that they're somewhere in our recruiting pipeline, so we want to get a good evaluation on them, because they have a good film grade. We have their academic information. We've done some preliminary qualifying for it. So for those guys to post that information, it's very helpful. And conversely, coaches will post, hey, here's the summer camp schedule I'm going to be at. So those kids can make that connection too. So
that's good.
And I think, Twitter is that, and all social media falls into that. What's the expression people use? When the product is free, you're the product. Like that, so that what's being sold, that those kids are selling themselves. They come and they have a great visit at Middlebury College, and they post a picture, at our field with a great view or in front of our statues. They're doing that. They are promoting Middlebury College. Everybody else is following them on Twitter, but at the same time, they want all the other coaches to know, hey, all the other coaches in our league are now they're going to go in and look at that kid's film. So it's just, so that whole social media dance is somewhat amusing. And 4 years ago, I was not on Twitter. Now I wake up in the morning, put a pot of coffee on, and first thing I do is sit down at Twitter. And it's amazing how many 16, 17, and 18-year-old boys are sending you messages after 10:30, sometime between 10:30 and 1 o'clock. Now that they're out of school, you're waking up in the morning and you're going to get 24 messages. Hey, coach, I just settled down, because they're going to workouts. They have a summer job. They're going to camps. They're hanging out with their buddies. Maybe they got some lawns to mow on the side, whatever. It's a funny dance. Right? But they posting all that stuff. It's a lot of work for them to post it. It's a lot of work for college coaches to stay on top of it as well. But it's a necessary part of the job in this day and age.
Wow, interesting. And Andrew, how many camps should a player, in theory, in an offseason, and what's your opinion on how many camps a guy should really do before it's too much?
So, like I was saying before, if you're a present 9th grader, let's say, or even an 8th grader, because they're entering the 9th grade, they can go to camps, probably 2, 3, 4 at the very, very most. And then if you're a rising junior or rising senior, typically you'd like it to be in the 3 to 6 range. I think there's a lot of problems when you go to too many camps. One, you start risking injury, because what you're already doing with your own high school program. You also risk not testing as well, because once you start going to more and more camps, they're exerting more energy in one camp probably than they exert in a whole week of high school practice. If they're doing it right, they're trying to win everything they're doing. They're trying to be competitive. So here's what I wanted to bring up, and I think it does tie in well. What I want to bring up is a good college football recruiter like Coach Caputi, okay, and a good recruit meaning someone that is doing things the right way, should be similar. They should both be targeting the right audience. Coach Caputi knows he can't tell you a kid can get in or not at Middlebury, but he's done his research that he can tell you this kid has a really good chance and that kid doesn't. He's also very good at saying this kid's really good. He might go Ivy, that's their deal. They're waiting for that kid to say no and who can play for the Ivies, but the Ivies isn't going on. That's their roadhouse right there. But he can say this kid's not fast enough. He's not tall enough. This kid's too good. They're going to offer him. But he's got to break his list down and target it, or else he'll go insane. But he'll do a better job giving the right kids the correct attention by targeting the right kids. So I know he's very good at that. And I thought I was pretty solid at it as well. But the student athlete needs to do the same thing. They have to take in real reality here is what schools are really is he going to get in? What schools does he really have a chance to play at? Hey, are the coaches responding to you? There's enough signals out there that we can tell you. Now, sometimes families don't want to listen to me and they always want to think their kid's going Division I. Coach and I have talked to that. We love the Ivy League, but sometimes they continue to send messages to these student athletes that Coach Caputi and I know they're not going to take. They just don't meet the requirements. More so athletically probably than academically. But I think if there's one huge thing to give advice, I'm not giving advice to any college coaches, but to give advice to the student athlete is make a correct target list of what schools should be on at what level academically and athletically. And then that dictates where you go to camp. Don't go to camps that either the people that run it aren't really interested in you or the people that are attending it. It's okay to go to a major college camp if there's other schools there attending that could be advantageous for you in the recruiting process. So could probably talk about that forever. Hopefully that's helpful information.
Yeah, but no. So basically, kind of in summary of the conversation we had is the fact that there's a whole aspect of, clerical relationships and targeting schools that weigh as heavy as all, the physical preparation to get ready for a season, right, Craig?
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on one thing you were talking about, I've seen a couple of those posts where someone's going to like 10 camps in 3 weeks, and I don't even know how they can do it. It's like a politician, campaigning every stop in every town. I don't know how they could physically do it. I feel bad. The poor parents are being drug around halfway around the country for 3 weeks. I guess that's their summer vacation. But
so
as long as they're going to camps that are going to help them. But go ahead, Coach.
I'm sorry, but to be in it now, it's a happy it's hard. It's hard for a family because a lot of times they believe their son's getting recruited by a school. But my education for the families is, hey, if you look at an email, let's say, and you say to yourself, anyone could have gotten this, then anyone did get it. So it's a mass email. So that doesn't mean you're really invited. But some of these letters I've seen could, for the eye that doesn't see this all the time, they think their kid's really getting recruited. You know what I mean? So I think if a college coach at this point, if you're a rising senior though, and they're not reaching out to you on a fairly consistent basis, either through texting, messaging, at the Division III level with Coach Caputi and Division II, they can call. But, if they're not making direct contact with you, it's probably safe to say that you're not a no, but probably a long shot for those colleges.
Let me add one thing too. The best thing a high school student athlete could do is to contact Coach Cohen and get one of those free film evaluations so Coach can really give you an idea of what schools you should be looking at. That's what I would recommend. I recommend it to all my clients. I would recommend to anybody. Go ahead and get a coach's, an experienced coach's opinion on what kind of camps you should be looking at or what kind of schools you should be looking at. And that'll help save you a lot of trouble.
And there's Andrew's information there again, 570-428-2872. Coach Cox there, 573-416-0829. Just a wealth of knowledge both of these gentlemen have. And just give them a call. Talk to Coach Cohen. The relationship that I have with Coach Cohen is, I like what I saw and really wanted to be associated with them. So that's really why I got involved and was really interested, in doing the podcast, because I felt that it was enormously beneficial to have that kind of, mediator or third party that really, that was independent of, the family unit, to provide some direction or at least some guidance. And that, I think, is the overriding factor too, as off-season preparation, is seek that guidance. Okay. Seek those extra opinions, ask a lot of questions, because that's what I do in anything related to sports or football or recruiting. Just go to people and ask questions, and that's where you learn, right, Dave?
Oh, absolutely. The woman who's the president at Middlebury College, when she engages with people, if they ask her a question, she follows up the question with 3 questions to make sure she answers the first question accurately. So and I think she practices great listening skills, which I've always been impressed with. So it's been a great lesson for me in the recruiting process, is make sure kids ask a lot of open-ended questions, making sure when I'm chatting with high school boys, I'm never asking them yes or no questions. It's just getting them in the practice of talking and answering questions, but also making sure, okay, now you have to ask 3 questions. And then they, in the early stages, they're struggling with how to ask that question. So and I think that's where Andrew is a good resource for kids on this whole process. Is he knows what questions have to be asked for the kid on the high school end, but he knows the questions that the college coaches need answered too. So he's anticipating questions from both sides of the when he's mediating, when he's a mediator between 2 parties on it, is what he ends up doing. And I can appreciate that, because parents are working full time, and they want to come home and have great relationships with their sons. And what they don't want to do is say, have you returned this coach's phone call? Have you gotten this, have you mailed them the transcript? Have you scheduled a visit here? Have you registered for this camp? They want to enjoy their time with their kids and not want to be coming home and, badgering 15, 16-year-old kids. Whereas you hire somebody and that person is staying on top of the sun. Have you mailed this to your coach? Have you done this? And I think that there's a benefit to that. It focuses the high school student. I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of the high school coach. But it also takes a lot of the pressure off of the parent, and the parent can check in and ask some questions every once in a while. But that mediator in this process to decipher, what people are saying, is really, really important, because it's what we do is ripe for miscommunication.
And I just by obviously listening to all the conversations that we've had with coaches, they really appreciate someone being the mediator in this process, just to ensure that basically all the I's are being dotted and all the T's are being crossed, right, Dave?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, a high school, they don't know how important that, they don't know how important all that paperwork is, because they've never had to do it. One mother many years ago said to me, my son went from, 14 or 15 years old, and he was sleeping late in the summer, and he'd wake up and he'd have 2 bowls of, two big bowls of sugar cereal, and doing all kinds of things like that. And then all of a sudden he got involved with football. And then the following summer, he was a completely different kid. He's waking up at 5:30 in the morning. He's, getting a ride in to lift with his teammates at 6 o'clock, making a shopping list for the mother on what he wants to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because he needs more protein and he wants to cut sugar out. Like, what just happened to this kid? All of a sudden he's matured dramatically. But filling out paperwork, making a schedule, checking in with your parents. It's like, I want to go to this football camp on a Wednesday night. Well, mom and dad have work commitments and like that. It's how do you put that whole plan together? Because then you have younger siblings. You might have a sister who's playing AAU basketball. You might have a younger brother who's playing lacrosse, and that whole, mom and dad work. It's like putting that all together needs. It's nice to have another voice in there helping the family manage that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this show. Not to kind of pat ourselves on the back, obviously Andrew and Craig, but this is really a recruiting show. Okay. This is really the soup to nuts aspect of college recruiting. Anybody can throw a show out there and show who's running a 4.35 and, everything else. But this is what the process is all about. Okay. It's relationships. It's all this paperwork. It's communication. And that's really what gets guys recruited. And in the case of Craig, gets these guys pointed in the right direction so they can pick the right college. And then once they get there, succeed in remaining a student. Right, Craig?
Absolutely. That's our goal, is to change those graduation and retention rates, change the percentages. And so if you got any questions about that, please contact me, and we're going to continue to help as many people as we can. And again, that's why I work with Coach Cohen, and I love the fact we teamed up with you, Bruce. And we all have the same mission, and it's to help people. So
yeah, I tell you what, it's we really I'm just going to get you guys information back up there before we say, before we end the show. But, you can see Coach Cohen there, 570-428-2872. That's probably the easiest way to get you, right, Andrew, is via phone?
That's great. But I mean, Twitter, I'm always on, is right there, and also Facebook.
Okay.
Hey, I want to put a shout out to Middlebury College. Coach Caputi was nice enough. He's very busy, nice enough to be on our show, but just want to make sure you understand that this is an amazing institution that plays really good football. Now here, I got to do this. This is weird, but my son is calling, and he's not allowed to use his phone right now. So I'm going to go. I apologize.
All right. We'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and say goodbye. Actually, we like to keep this show really to about a half hour. But Dave, I tell you what, it was fascinating conversation. Hopefully you'll come back again. I mean, we do this every week and we talk about, a number of topics, but just incredible insight on the size. You actually answered the question on the size of the database, that you're looking at on these guys, because that was going to be, a question on my part there. But listen, thank you for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to joining you again sometime.
All right,
Absolutely.
Coach Cox, man.
It's nice to meet you, Coach.
Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting you, Dave.
I'm at to contact you so I can get some of the inside scoop on Coach Cohen.
Okay.
The side no one knows.
Well, listen, thanks to everybody who watches the show. We'll be back next week. Craig, you're obviously, what's next week's topic again? You're the one that put together
I know I put together the post, but I honestly don't have it in front of me right now. I apologize.
All right, well, let's check back.
We'll post it up about 100 times this week.
Yeah.
I claimed this. I didn't claim to be the most knowledgeable podcast members in terms of remember what podcast is that.
All right. Well, listen.
But it's a good one, I'm sure.
Thanks everybody for watching, Dave. Nice meeting you. We'll
Nice
see you
meeting you.
next Sunday at 7:30 for the Get Signed and Succeed podcast.